I see that Crown Royal. I saw it at home. So this is what I think about Crown Royal. That's what they could do.
Amherstburg workers have been blindsided today and sent home 2 days earlier than expected by Diageo. Unifor calls this a final show of disrespect.
Workers in Amherstburg showed up expecting to finish what they started. Instead, they were told to grab their things and go home, 2 days early. Just like that. For months, everyone knew the end was coming. Back in the summer of 2025, the parent company of Diageo had announced the bottling plant would close. Severance packages were negotiated. Union members voted. Roughly 160 workers made the choice to stay until the very last shift. They stayed because they believed there would be a last shift, a final run of bottles, a moment to look around the floor one more time, maybe even a proper goodbye. Instead, on February 25, 2026, in the middle of a regular workday, the line stopped. Go home. No ceremonial final bottle of Crown Royal. No closing handshake at the end of the week. No symbolic countdown to midnight. Just silence where machines had been humming for generations. The workers were paid for the remaining 2 days. On paper, that sounds fair. In real life, it didn't feel that way.
Stephanie, workers thought they would remain on the job until Saturday, but they were sent home early this afternoon. As we've reported, the company shifting production to their facilities in Manitoba and Quebec. The move got the attention of Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who in a now famous media conference poured out a bottle of Crown Royal to show his displeasure. And he threatened to pull it off LCBO.
Unifor's national president called it a final show of disrespect. And for many inside that building, that phrase hit home. A planned closure is painful but predictable. An early shutdown feels abrupt, cold, like someone flipped a switch and decided even the last 48 hours weren't worth it. This wasn't just any plant. Amherstburg's facility carried nearly a century of history. Families had worked there across generations. Parents trained children. Siblings shared shifts. The brand wasn't just something on a liquor shelf. It was part of the town's identity. When the bottling line went quiet, it wasn't just 200 direct jobs that vanished. It was delivery routes, supply contracts, lunch crowds at local diners, and the steady rhythm that manufacturing towns depend on. And the timing made it harder to swallow. Crown Royal wasn't failing. The brand had posted organic net sales growth. Volume was up. In the United States, sales had climbed even higher, boosted by new flavors and expanding demand. At the group level, Diageo reported growth as well. This wasn't a collapse story. It wasn't a bankruptcy. It was a strategic shift. Production would move partly to facilities in Manitoba, Quebec's Valleyfield site, and increasingly closer to American consumers. From a boardroom perspective, it likely made logistical sense. Streamline supply chains, reduce cross-border friction, position bottling closer to growth markets. In an era of trade tensions and political pressure to bring jobs home, shifting volume south of the border could be framed as efficiency. But in Amherstburg, it felt like abandonment. The shutdown ignited a political firestorm. Ontario Premier Doug Ford didn't hold back. In a dramatic media moment that spread quickly across the country, he poured out a bottle of Crown Royal in front of cameras, signaling his anger and threatening to remove the brand from LCBO shelves. The Liquor Control Board of Ontario is one of the largest alcohol buyers in the world. Losing that shelf space would have been no small blow. Ford framed it as standing up for Ontario workers, protecting local jobs, drawing a line. Behind the scenes, negotiations followed. Instead of a ban, a deal emerged. Diageo committed $23 million in Ontario investments. $11 million would go towards sourcing grain-neutral spirits from Eastern Ontario. $3 million would be invested in ready-to-drink Crown Royal products made in Toronto. $1 million would support local economic initiatives in Amherstburg. On paper, it looked like a win. A headline number politicians could point to. A gesture the company could use to show continued commitment to the province. But none of it restarted the bottling line that had just gone dark. None of it brought back the 200 jobs that disappeared. The overwhelming bulk of the money flowed elsewhere. For many in Essex County, it felt less like a rescue and more like a rearrangement. What makes the story linger is the contrast. Growth charts rising, expansion in the U.S. market. And yet, a historic Ontario plant deemed expendable. Some union voices suggested the move aligned neatly with American reshoring trends, political pressure, tariff threats, and an environment that increasingly rewards domestic production south of the border. Whether trade dynamics were the decisive factor or simply one piece of a broader supply chain strategy, the perception stuck. If your strongest growth is in the U.S., shifting bottling closer to that market reduces risk. Fewer cross-border headaches, cleaner distribution, greater control. From a spreadsheet, it's tidy. From the factory floor, it's devastating. Workers described the shock of walking into a building suddenly stripped of its usual sounds. The humming of machines replaced by an eerie quiet. People who expected to clock out on Friday were told Wednesday afternoon not to come back. Some wished they'd at least had time to organize a proper farewell gathering inside the plant. Closure matters. Ritual matters, even in shutdowns. And then there's the question many quietly ask. If everything had been planned for months, why cut it short by 2 days? What changed? Did those 48 hours truly alter productivity or savings in any meaningful way? Or was it about optics, avoiding a highly publicized final shift, emotional scenes, or organized protest that might have amplified backlash? Corporations operate with precision. When they alter timelines at the last minute, people notice. For Amherstburg's mayor, the closure stung not only economically but symbolically. Without stable industrial jobs, communities risk becoming bedroom towns, places where people sleep but don't build. The fear isn't just about today's layoffs, it's about long-term erosion. When manufacturing leaves, it rarely returns in the same form. Across Canada, the story resonated because it taps into something bigger. It echoes what other sectors have experienced. Gradual production shifts, lines relocated, plants consolidated. Not dramatic collapses, but strategic recalibrations. One facility here, one department there. Over time, the industrial base thins out. Canada has long balanced its identity between raw resource supplier and value-added producer. When bottling operations move elsewhere while grain sourcing stays, some can't help but wonder, are we sliding back toward being suppliers of inputs rather than builders of finished goods? Consumers now face their own quiet decision. Will they remember how this unfolded? Or will the brand's growth and marketing momentum quickly drown out the memory of an early shutdown in a small Ontario town? Brand perception lingers. So does community memory. Because in the end, this wasn't just about whiskey. It was about how global strategy collides with local reality. It was about how a profitable brand can still decide that a nearly 100-year-old Canadian plant no longer fits the long-term plan. And it was about how 2 days, just 2, shifted the emotional tone from orderly closure to abrupt dismissal. The machines are silent now. The doors are closed. Investments have been promised. Political statements have been made. Growth continues elsewhere. But in Amherstburg, February 25th isn't just a date on a corporate timeline. It's the day everything stopped mid-shift, and the day many began asking what security, loyalty, and corporate responsibility truly mean in an age where efficiency always seems to win.